Good to have you with us all across the U.S. and Canada and wherever you may be watching, courtesy of our YouTube channel, the Sports Wrap with Jason Page YouTube channel. We appreciate you being with us. Lots to do over the next 60 minutes. We're in the middle of refurbishing the Sports Wrap studios. This isn't the final product. We're kind of the middle stages of it. Bear with us. Hope you like it. We will be joined by our friend Sam Yarnell, who's always here on Sports Wrap, coming up in just a few minutes. Bill Bender of the Sporting News joins us every Monday to talk college sports. We'll get into it with him coming up in about 20 minutes. There is baseball to talk about. Joe Adell may have had the greatest game defensively in the history of sports. Not just baseball, but ever. We'll get into that coming up a little later on. Could there already be a manager on the hot seat 10 games into the baseball season? If there is such a thing, we'll be talking about that coming up, as well as the NBA a little later on in the show. But we start things out on this Monday. As we always do, it's time for the big story. And the big story was Geno Auriemma and Dawn Staley and the handshake scene around the world. Or was it a handshake or was it not a handshake? Who knows? But Dawn Staley, Geno Auriemma, going at it at the end of their Final Four matchup where South Carolina disposed of UConn 62-48. And what it calls to mind for me is the double standard that exists in sports. And I don't think we get it this enough sometimes. You know, this double standard that exists in sports. That as long as you win, we are willing to tolerate just about anything. As long as you win games, as long as you win championships, there really is almost nothing that is beyond the pale. UConn women's basketball is defined by what Geno Auriemma has done over the last 30 plus years. Double-digit national championships, won another one last year in this new era of college basketball where it is so much more competitive as opposed to the ones he won in the early years where there were only a few good teams. But over the years, we've watched this tug and pull of Geno, the great coach, Geno, the great motivator of women, versus Geno, who when approached and challenged by strong-willed opposing female coaches, acts the way you saw him act, you know, in that sore loser mentality, that petty, vindictive Geno. There's no getting around it. That's what this was. That UConn basketball is willing to tolerate. Why? Because he wins. Why? Because he brings millions of dollars into the program. Why? Because he brings some of the best female basketball players into the program that then go on to play professionally all around the world, and they have UConn attached to them. So you put up with it. Dawn Staley, who doesn't lack culpability in this whole thing that took place. Dawn Staley does not lack culpability in what transpired on Friday night. By the way, congratulations to UCLA on their national championship, which is what everybody should be talking about, but instead we're talking about this. Dawn Staley doesn't lack culpability because you had Dawn Staley, the head coach of one of the top head coaches in all of basketball, male or female. Somebody who's been talked about and floated as a potential NBA head coach. That's how good she is. She could be the first female NBA head coach. And you know what she said? Into an open, you know, in an area where you could actually hear her say it. There were actually mics that picked up her saying, "I will beat his ass." She said that multiple times. How do you have that representing your school if you're South Carolina? How? Because she wins. How? Because she's won national championships. How? Because she brings dollars into the program. She brings respectability to a program that 10 years ago nobody ever thought about as a college basketball powerhouse. That's how. Again, you are willing to put up with certain things as a result of winning. Bobby Knight is the ultimate embodiment of this. Was a monster for decades. When he won, Indiana, IU, they looked the other way. When he outlasted his usefulness to the school, what did they do? They kicked him to the curb, sent him packing. Dan Hurley has a chance to win 3 championships in 4 years. The way he behaves on the sideline would not fly anywhere if he was a 500 head coach. Well, look at his brother, Bobby Hurley, just got sent packing out of Arizona State. Why? Because he was a mediocre coach from a win-loss perspective. What you are willing to tolerate is based on how much you win or lose. But let's not do this feigning of outrage. I see the Emmanuel Achos of the world and the Jamel Hills, and everybody's clutching their pearls 5 minutes after the South Carolina UConn game ends. Nobody's mentioning the fact that Dawn Staley literally sat there on the court and screamed so everybody could hear it, "I will beat his ass." I want to say it again because I can. I will beat his ass. That's what your head coach at South Carolina said. And by the way, Geno apologized the next day. Didn't say Dawn Staley's name, and I know I read, gonna lose their minds because Geno didn't say her name. By the way, I'm the guy that said Geno should retire after last year's national championship. So this isn't me doing some Geno apologist tour. Okay, that is not this at all. I said the guy should have retired after he won the national championship last year. I thought what he did was petty and vindictive on Friday night. You can't sit there and defend Dawn Staley when she's screaming, "I'm going to beat his ass." Like we're on the streets of Philadelphia. Class it up a little bit. We'll tolerate it because she wins. This portion of the show is presented by our friends at Colossus Fantasy. Pick'em games, peer-to-peer games. They got it all. Go and check it out. Use my promo code SPORTSWRAP right now. Get yourself a $40 bonus on a $10 deposit, an $80 bonus on a $20 deposit. Again, using my promo code SPORTSWRAP when you sign up with our friends in that first deposit over at Colossus Fantasy. We're coming back with Sam Yarnell, get his thoughts on the national championship game and a whole bunch more next. Welcome back to the show. Say hello to the one and only Sam Yarnell for the first time. There he is. Sam Yarnell, ladies and gentlemen. The one and only. Still making adjustments here to the new studio setup. Sam said I look like a floating head today because I'm wearing a black sweatshirt. Thanks. Way to make a guy feel good about himself. It's all right. It means nobody can see my body, and that's a very good thing. Well, we've got a UConn-Michigan matchup, which, by the way, yours truly predicted, had it in his bracket. So congratulations to me. I mean, look, Sam, UConn's a 7.5-point underdog as of Monday morning. My heart is with UConn. My head is with Michigan. This Michigan team, and Tom Moore said this when we had him on the show last week, we being me, because you didn't get to talk to him, but what he said was this Michigan team feels a lot like UConn of 2 years ago. They feel inevitable in so many regards. You hope they get tight if you're a UConn fan. I mean, give me the argument for UConn, I guess. Let's start there.
The argument is, Jason, sometimes great things happen in sports, right? And you're exactly right. I feel the same way as you do towards this game, and I think that there's a lot of that same sentiment, right? You're giving me the UConn Huskies. You're giving me Dan Hurley, who's, I think the number that's been going around, he's 19-1 ATS on this against the spread on this incredible multi-year run in the NCAA tournament that he's been on. You're going to give me Dan Hurley plus 7.5 points. I'm getting a touchdown with UConn. Yeah, I'm going to take that as a lot of the general public is, right? As you're seeing being taken far and wide. I saw somewhere yesterday that there were upwards of 80% of tickets on UConn in this game. That is incredible. UConn getting the 7.5 points. And I think what speaks to the point that you made about your head telling you that it's going to be Michigan. The line hasn't moved. All this money coming in on UConn, all the public loves UConn plus 7.5, and that hasn't come down a tick. As a matter of fact, it's only gone up. So that makes me lean towards Michigan, right? As you and I say all the time, there's a reason they got big old buildings down the street from you in Vegas. It's because they get these numbers right a lot more than they get them wrong. So that's kind of the only justification for me to the Michigan is inevitable point. It seems like everybody and their cousins on UConn in this game. And hey, when you got an opportunity to join a bandwagon, why don't you?
Yeah, here's the thing. UConn has not played a single game in this tournament. And if anybody wants to disagree with me on this, have at it. UConn has not played a single game in this tournament well enough to beat Michigan. Not one. Even the Duke game, they didn't shoot it well enough in that game until the final 3 or 4 minutes. They have not played a single game where they played well enough to beat this Michigan team. They're going to have to play it. Look, it's a game that's going to, they're going to have to try and play this game in what, the 70s? You know, you hope it's in the 70s. Alex Karaban's 4 of 13 shooting over the last 2 games. That can't happen. The one thing that happened against Duke that has to happen against Michigan is they can't turn the ball over. I think they had like 5 turnovers against Duke. They cannot turn the basketball over. They got to figure out a way to just milk every possession, try and limit the number of times Michigan has the basketball, and just see if they can grind this thing out, get it late, get it into the deep water here, where Michigan maybe starts to choke up a little bit late in this game. That's the only argument I can make for them.
No, I think if they play the same game they played against Michigan State, and people forget about that game very quickly because they, in very close succession, played Duke and played, like you said, their very bad game against Duke, and they still won, and it took a bunch of luck, and Duke did choke the game away, and there's no doubt about any of that. But UConn played a bad basketball game and still came out with the win in that matchup against Duke. If you look back at the Michigan State game, that's what they will have to do to win. They held Michigan State to 25% shooting from 3. They held them to 40% shooting overall, and they shot the ball better than 40% from 3 alone. So if UConn can do that, if they can strap them down, and it's going to take a little bit of puck luck, like you said, you're going to need to catch Michigan slightly on and off night, but that's what it's going to take, Jason. You got to get hot from 3, and you got to hope that you can defend the 3-point arc well if you're UConn.
Yeah, and I like UConn getting the points too. I'm not putting Sam's
Joe
money
Public
on it
over here.
Yeah, I know, but I do like UConn getting the points. It is hard to turn down Dan Hurley getting 7.5 in this game with this UConn team, and we'll obviously what happens, and we'll recap it on tomorrow's show. On the women's side, congratulations UCLA, great story, national championship for that program. But it's a shame that what we're coming out of the weekend talking about is what happened with Geno and Dawn Staley, on Friday night, and sort of the whole blow up at the end of that basketball game. I'll look at it from 2 perspectives quickly here, and one of them is this: Geno blew it, at the end of the game with the way he approached this situation. At the same time, the knee-jerk reaction that everybody was ready to take him out and slaughter him, literally in the hour or 2 after the game, and give him zero grace and not give him the opportunity to come back the next day and say, I screwed up. I got it wrong. I kind of have a bit of a problem with that. By the same token, I said a year ago when he won the national championship, you should remember this, Sam, because you remember things I say more than I do. I said a year ago, he should have walked away after he won the national title a year ago. And this is precisely why. Because you find yourself in this situation. Geno doesn't like losing. Geno doesn't like strong-willed women on the other side of the court either. And that's just a reality of who Geno Auriemma is. And Dawn Staley is that. By the same token, Dawn Staley being heard in an open mic multiple times saying, I will beat his ass, is also not the greatest look in the world, regardless of what happened at center court, Sam.
Yeah, so first of all, it's incredible to me that as historic a basketball school that UCLA is, this was their first women's NCAA
Isn't
championship.
that amazing?
Kudos to UCLA. Incredible stuff. One of the historic academic and athletic institutions in this country. UConn's got a problem. And it's not just a Geno problem, and it's not just a Dan Hurley problem. It's now become a UConn problem, and Geno's contributed to it, and Dan Hurley's contributed to it. But that athletic director has to have a round table or something, and they got to get it figured out, because now this is becoming the university that just has crazy coaches, and that's what you don't want to be in the NIL era.
It's true. It's true. But you know what? They still get players to come and play. So I mean, there is that. But I don't think Geno's going anywhere. He's gonna go out on his own terms. I thought he should have gone after last year. Bill Bender will join us next. Sam back later in the show. Welcome back to the show. Let's talk some college basketball, some college sports. Bringing our friend Bill Bender of the Sporting News in the Sports Wrap Spotlight today. It might be the last time I see him for a few weeks, so I gotta soak it in, because he's this is it. We're gonna give him a break after this, right? Are we?
Are we
really?
I mean, we talked about this before we came on. There's no break in college sports or NFL sports. So if you guys want to have me back on, I enjoy our Monday conversations. They're a part of our routine, and we got a really good one today, no doubt.
Oh, it is. And look, I want to get into this game tonight. I'm steadfast in my belief. My heart is with UConn. Obviously, I'm from Connecticut. Not that I went to UConn or anything like that. But my heart is with UConn. My head is with Michigan. The number is 7.5, which I think is very appropriate, considering what we've seen from Michigan this year. I don't think UConn has played a game in this tournament so far that was worthy of beating a team like Michigan. Would you agree with that sentiment?
Sort of, because I'll tell you this, what they've been able to do is beat two teams that Michigan sees all the time. They beat Michigan State and they beat Illinois. And how did they do that? They turned them into old school, a kind of a hybrid between a Big East and a Big Ten game. Neither one of those teams shot the ball well against UConn at all. And that's what they're going to need tonight. If you look at the games Michigan lost or struggled, the Duke game, 70-65, that would have to be the final score for UConn to win. Something like 70-65. TCU slowed Michigan down. Purdue slowed Michigan down. If you try to run with them, it's not going to work. They have too many, even Yaxel or no Yaxel or 50% Yaxel, they can run you off the floor because, and what I'm watching, I don't know about you, the big matchups, Reed obviously.
Well, this is what I wanted to ask you. That's what I wanted to get. What are the one or two matchups you're looking at most?
Reed and Merez and Adell Mara. Adell Mara, Charles Barkley finally used a phrase I've been using for about a month on Mara, and it's cheat code. He's, for those of us who grew up playing NBA Jam, you would press the one button and your tall center would just slam it with both hands. That's what he is. The block shots, the thing that's going around how Elliot Cadeau was throwing it off the backboard to him just so he could lay it in. And they're pretty complete. But, we're underestimating Dan Hurley a little bit somehow, because I'm sure he has a game plan to slow it down. UConn will have to shoot the ball from three like they did the other night. You're going to need Mullins and Caravan to hit probably 3 or 4 each.
I just wonder if Cadeau wears out Mullins on the defensive end and what you're going to get from Mullins. He's going to be a load for Mullins, I feel like. And I just wonder how much that impacts the freshman on the other side of the ball.
Yeah, Michigan's 2-point defense is really good. And Elliot Cadeau, as much as you got into how many times he shot the ball Saturday, his defense on Jaden Bradley was
I just worry about Mullins. I worry about Mullins getting into foul trouble.
It could happen. And that's one thing that can't happen. And then I think Michigan, they just have other guys that can score, right? Like Yaxel's out, so Trey McKinney steps up.
Right.
Namari Burnett's a kind of hit or miss shooter on the outside, but he can drive to the basket. And they just have so many pieces they can hit you with. And Dusty's got them playing at a very high level. The spread you talked about, 7.5, makes a lot of sense to me too, because I think that's probably what the score is going to be, somewhere around that 82-74, 83-75 type game. if that's the final score and if it pushes into the 80s, then Michigan's going to win.
If Dan Hurley and UConn were to win this, it's by far his best of the 3 titles, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was trying to rack my brain, like, what's one that, like, a legendary coach kind of stole? You know, Calhoun had a couple like that. Coach K, what was his worst team that won a national title? They were all pretty darn good, right?
Yeah.
So it'd be, if you get 3 and 4 years, those are the type of things when we do the football discussions that we have on here, you talk about greatest coaches of all time. So, I mean, Dan is doing a fantastic job. I saw the interview with Dusty May. They clearly like each other. Like, that wasn't feigned or fake or any of that. So, the coaching matchup, these are 2 elite coaches, no question.
If there is a blowout, though, I could see this also going the other way and, Michigan winning by, 17, 18 points. That's the only way I could see a blowout. But do you get the sense, is there anything in Michigan's DNA? You've seen more of them this year than I have. So I ask you this. Is there anything in their DNA that tells you if UConn gets them into the deep water late in this game that they could sort of tighten up? Is there an example or a game that you look back at during the regular season where you go, oh, okay?
The Duke game. I mean, if it turns into that, it could get tight late, and then it depends on how the officials are calling the game. That's been under, on the men's and women's side, we've seen that in this tournament. And if it was like I said, a 70-65 type game, they could miss some shots and shoot themselves out of this game. And, you'd need a couple guys to be in foul trouble. And, I mean, you learn over watching. We know UConn perfect in title games, right? Michigan has lost 4 consecutive title games since 1989, the 2 Fab Five games, the Trey Burke game, and then the team with Mo Wagner that lost to the superior Villanova team. That I feel like this is their best chance since the second year of the Fab Five in 1993 when they played North Carolina. Michigan was supposed to win that game. They weren't supposed to win the last 2. So, and we know what happened in a high-pressure situation in that game. We had one of the most infamous mistakes in NCAA tournament history.
Yes, we did. A thought on UCLA, and I'll get to the Geno stuff in the next segment. I want to give the last minute plus here to UCLA because they deserve at least that for winning this national championship and beating a good South Carolina team that just disposed of UConn a couple of days earlier. What it means for UCLA basketball, which we always think of from the men's side, but to do this on the women's side and win this national championship.
Well, when you follow it with a little bit of a broader brush,
sure.
I just so much more impressed with Corey Close, the coach that's been there for 15 years. And you talk about loyalty and all those kind of things in sports. For Lauren Betts, who was a 2-time All-American for us, and their seniors scored all the points. That was the big thing for me, these seniors, and they went out and took it to South Carolina. But I enjoy Corey Close's coaching style. I enjoyed her reaction after the game. She was hugging her mom or dad. Tears were flowing, those kind of things. But you can tell that's a coach that's put in the work, built the foundation. And her sideline demeanor is amazing. I mean, Jason, we joke about it all the time on here. Her sideline demeanor is kind of like mine. When I coach on the sideline, there's a lot of animation to it, but it's all trying, hopefully, to go toward a good place, and that's where she had her team.
And UCLA wins that national championship big over South Carolina. All right, we're going to hang on to Bill Bender for one more segment. I wanted to get into the Geno, Dawn Staley stuff because I know you wrote about that, so I want to get into that. And also, Donald Trump signing an executive order having to do a lot with college sports. We'll get into that as well as we continue. Bill Bender in the Sports Wrap Spotlight. Welcome you back inside the Sports Wrap Studios in Las Vegas. Oh, there'll be a lot of money wagered on that UConn-Michigan game tonight. I'm taking UConn plus the 7.5. Give me Dan Hurley. Give me Dan Hurley plus 7.5. Give me a guy that's, undefeated in the Final Four. Plus 7.5, Bill Bender, right?
I've taken Michigan because I just think, and it's going to be tight. You make a call like that. Like I said, I believe the final score I put down was 82-71.
I was out in California for the holiday weekend, and everybody was talking about Dawn Staley and Geno. Here's my take on it. And I talked about it in the big story, so I won't go too long-winded because I want to hear your take more. I I thought the piling on Geno so quickly after what happened was a little bit much, in that nobody gave him the grace to come back the next day and say, you know what, heat of the moment, I screwed up. Whether he said her name in the apology or not, we can get into that. But I also think at the same time, she's getting a total pass on the fact that literally into a mic that everybody could hear, she said, I'm going to beat Geno's ass. Like, multiple times this woman said this. And the fact that nobody seems to care about that this woman who's the coach at South Carolina said, I will beat his ass, is like, I can't get past that. I know what Geno did was idiotic and it was petty. We can certainly get into that. But her reaction, like, I'm sorry. I think both sides are at fault here.
I think it all started at the end of the third quarter when he, had the sideline interview with Holly Rowe. He talked about the refs, you getting the, kicked out of us, and then said, and they have a coach. And then he went after her. And I'm like, all of this was out of bounds, because I always tell my kids and my players at the, like I said, much lower level, when you start complaining about the refs, then you've lost control of yourself. And he sounded more like a fan complaining on social media than a head coach that is coaching in a major college basketball game. Then it got petty with his explanation about, well, I was waiting out there for 3 minutes and I'm not playing. And Dawn may have been messing with him there. Who knows? Coaches like at that level that are that hyper competitive do little things like that. I'm glad Geno apologized. In the moment, though, most of this was on him. It really was, because just shake your hand. You know what he could have done? Shake hands, go to the locker room, go blast the officials like you do in the NCAA tournament. But I'll say one other thing, Jason, and somebody commented under my story and said this Friday night. He said, Geno only gets attention. Women's basketball only gets attention when Geno does something like this. Unfortunately, on some level, that's probably true, because it pulled in the rest of the country so they could pile on Geno and maybe, like you said, look past some things that Dawn did.
Like I said, you can't have one of the best coaches in all of basketball, period, full stop, saying, I'll beat his ass. You can't. There's no way that's a good look on any level. I don't care how competitive you are, short of him, calling her the B word or something like that. I cannot fathom having your head coach, if you're at South Carolina, say, I'll beat his ass. Think about that.
No,
if he said that to her, if he had said that to her, he'd be gone. It would be over. It'd be game over.
I guess I'm desensitized to it, and I'll tell you why. Because I watched John Chaney walk into a press conference and threaten to beat John Calipari's ass and then threatened to kill him, which also happened. And
I love it.
That got glorified, and it's been replayed billions of times. So maybe that went over my head a little bit because of the late John Chaney, and that's a legendary moment. And that's part of it, though. That was a great rivalry, much like South Carolina and UConn should be.
Give me your thoughts on Donald Trump signing this executive order, which I don't know how much teeth it has in it. It'll get challenged legally, but it forces the NCAA's hand, and I think that's the point. And for all the things that I will lose my mind on involving Donald Trump, this is one that I'm not, because I actually like the fact that he is forcing the NCAA's hand on this to stop guys from staying in school for a zillion years and saying, look, we got to get this thing down to a reasonable amount of time. Between that and the big debate we saw on ESPN this weekend with Jay Billis and Seth Greenberg and John Calipari, I'm curious to get your thoughts on all of it.
Well, that was good TV.
I agree.
It was good to hear Calipari and Reese and Jay Billis. Jay Billis has been very strong over the years in his opinions. I don't agree with all of them, but he's been consistent. And I think you just said it best about Donald Trump. Without getting into a lengthy conversation about his domestic or foreign policy, give a kid 5 years rule makes sense to me. You should have 5 years to play in college, then you're done. And the way I would do it is, you got your 5 years. If you blow your ACL out, there's one. In extreme cases, we'll give you like a medical waiver if for some, you know what I mean? Like But in general, you've got 5 years to go get done what you need to get done. You're getting paid for it, and then you go to the next level. I don't have an appetite for 6th, 7th, even 8-year players in college sports. And I think this is for like I said, all of the things Donald Trump has done,
sure,
a lot of these reforms he's suggesting actually make sense.
But will it work? Will it get the NCAA to do, will it accomplish what it's meant to accomplish ultimately?
Well, that's the thing. The NCAA, when they do these things, like we clamored for years, you got to let them transfer, and they open the portal the way the NCAA allows for it, becomes a disaster. Yeah. We've got to let NIL happen. The NCAA allows for it. And what do we always say? Wild, Wild West, needs guardrails, all those things. So I think the NCAA needs to refine these things. And if Donald Trump can help by putting pressure on it, and the voices that were also at that roundtable, like Saban and Urban and Jay Billis, then yes, we should listen.
Bill Bender does a great job with the sporting news. Check out his work there. I always appreciate you, my friend. We'll talk down the line.
Sounds great. Thank you.
We'll wrap it up with some odds and ends from the NBA coming up in 10 minutes. By the way, it's Masters Week. We will have it covered. Can't wait. We're gonna have a Masters with no Tiger Woods and Phil Mickelson. That's gonna be weird. Sam Yarnell, let's talk some baseball. I gave you basically a couple of days. Not that I gave you, but I mean, you've had a couple of days to sort of think on this, I'm sure. And I'm knowing you being the contrarian that you are, the educated contrarian, not just a contrarian for the sake of being a contrarian. I am sure that you have come up with something, somewhere, sometime in history, you have come up with something that tops Joe Adell's 3 home run robbery game on Saturday night out at the Big A against the Mariners, which is just the most mind-blowing thing I have seen. And I don't do hyperbole on this show. I don't ever do the greatest day. We leave that to the loudmouth, blowhards that lack perspective. But this, I can't think of anything. I am at a loss for what we saw Joe Adell do in that game. To have 3 opportunities and to rob all 3 of them is just mind-blowing, Sam.
Yeah, Jason, it is an apt thing to say. I do love a good contrary point. I do love to be, a little bit of a black sheep with my opinions sometimes. But at the same time, I am a traditionalist, especially when it comes to baseball. And I, as you well could assume, have some very pointed opinions about this game. First of all, you're exactly right. There's no chance that there's a greater defensive game than this in Major League Baseball history. You're kidding me, right? Like that's just a joke if anyone tries to tell you that. The guy robbed 3 home runs in a 1-0 victory. He saved the game 3 different times. This wasn't a 12-7 game. This wasn't a game where the ball was leaving the yard left and right and runs were coming at a plenty, right? Runs were at a premium in this affair. And Joe Adell took 3 of them back. So that was my first thing. Anyone trying to tell you that there's ever been, I know Willie Mays was awesome, right? No one's telling you he wasn't. No one's telling you Ichiro Suzuki didn't play great defense in his day. He did, right? I mean, there are even some great guys in the league right now who Denzel Clark, you see him patrolling center field in Sacramento. Great defender. He's had some great games. None of them on their own are better than what Joe Adell did. And I'll take it a step further because in this increasingly analytical world that we live in, where everyone thinks that they've got a number smarter than everybody else, and I am prisoner to that moment very, very frequently, I won't lie to you, that to me, in an era, Jason, where we have a single statistic, wins above replacement, seems like in and of itself, that game should be worth at least 1 win above replacement. You won the game single-handedly for your team, which is very hard to do in baseball. I don't understand why no one's giving Joe Adell even the credit that he seems to deserve beyond having the greatest defensive game of all time. It was special what we got to witness on Saturday night.
Yeah, for a lot of people, if you're on the East Coast, you may not know a lot about Joe Adell. First of all, he had actually a decent year last year. I think he was like 30-plus home runs, 89, around 90 RBIs.
Not a defensive guy, though.
No, he's never been thought of as a defensive guy. But, I mean, this is a guy that was a highly touted prospect in the Angels organization, struggled to get playing time. When he did, he kind of, he was in and out of the lineup. Was a guy that I was a big believer in and invested heavily in his cards early in his career as he was coming up through the minors. So it was nice to see him have his moment, and we'll see what it means for him as we go through the rest of the season and the Angels in this kind of goulash that is the AL West. Tony Vitello in the National League West. The San Francisco Giants off to a 3-7 start. He gets thrown out of his first game for the first time in a loss for the Giants against the Mets 5-2. And there's a lot of people starting to scratch their heads at this, starting to point fingers. Oh, did Buster Posey get it wrong? I know you're probably on the side of, this is going horribly wrong. I'm still of the mindset, dude, it's 162 games. We're through 7% of the season. Calm down. I know it's the National League West, which is a juggernaut and a difficult division to kind of work your way through, but let's just all take a breath. Are we going to fire the guy 20 games into the season? Are we going to fire him halfway through the season? What are we going to do here, Sam?
No, there is a large contingent online of fan. I don't know if they're Giants fans or just baseball people calling for Tony Vitello's job. Like you said, not even a dozen games into the season. It's hokum. It's ridiculous. Stop. Just quit it. He'll figure it out. He'll get it figured out by June. He'll be a good manager eventually. He might not be right now, and that's a different thing, but he will be eventually. This is a guy who I have confidence in, and maybe it's the college baseball enjoyer in me, but this is a guy who I've watched manage at very high levels and be able to get it done under copious amounts of pressure, Jason. So I'm going to trust in Tony Vitello. What I will say is this. He is still a college manager, and you see that a little bit in how he handles certain situations in a major league dugout, right? You saw the third game of the season. He shook the lineup basically top to bottom. That's something a college manager does. That's not something a major league manager does. Getting thrown out of a game in whatever it was, the fourth or sixth inning because you let an extra F-bomb fly to the umpire. That's something a college umpire does. That's not what a major league umpire does. Growing pains. That's what we're going to have to live with him for a little bit.
Yeah, and I hope they give him the time to sort of grow in the job. And Buster Posey, we always hear the voicing of support for a manager. He better come out and do it now because this is his guy and this is his hire. Sam Yarnell, we'll see you back here tomorrow on the show. Odds and Ends are next. Just about time to put the wraps on this baby for a Monday. Before we do, a couple of reminders. Tomorrow on the show, full recap of the national championship game. UConn and Michigan. See who comes out on top in that one. Maybe a guest or two. We'll see. Any other breaking news, we'll obviously have it covered for you. Some other reminders. If you haven't done so yet, make sure to subscribe to the Sports Wrap with Jason Page podcast, the audio version of this show, available Monday through Friday, wherever you get your podcast, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Odyssey, Amazon, you name it. Anywhere you get a podcast, you can listen to this show Monday through Friday, 45 minutes, largely commercial-free, just a couple of commercials sprinkled in there. The show works just as well as an audio podcast. We do it intentionally that way so that you can enjoy it while you're driving, on the way to work, in a plane, on a train, sitting in on the treadmill. If you're laying in bed, want something to start your day, go and check out the Sports Wrap with Jason Page podcast. Subscribe. We appreciate it. The Sports Wrap with Jason Page YouTube channel. This is the place for all things Sports Wrap with Jason Page. The Monday through Friday TV version of the show is available there. 45 minutes commercial free, waiting there for you each and every afternoon. All the interviews, all the commentary, all the opinions, everything you expect from the show is there early and sometimes a little later in the afternoon, depending on the day. Our companion podcasts are available there. The Sports Wrap Spotlight is there. Inside Baseball is there. The NBA Weekly is there. Go and check all of it out on our YouTube channel. Also there, Sports Wrap Shorts, Monday through Friday and the weekends. News breaks, we jump in with Sports Wrap Shorts, 1 to 3 minute long videos, recapping the top stories, the top games in sports, available on our YouTube channel, the Sports Wrap with Jason Page YouTube channel. Subscribe today, it's free, we appreciate it. Also, Sports Wrap Shorts available on our TikTok, Sports Wrap Jason Page, and on Insta, Sports Wrap Jason Page. And now, without any further delay on this Monday edition of the show, it's time for some odds and ends. Odds and ends. It feels like the end of the Lakers season, doesn't it? You have Luka Doncic, hamstring. We were wondering if it was grade 1 or grade 2. We found out over the weekend it was grade 2. Usually that means 3 to 6 weeks. You do the math. It figures it could end his season. He's going overseas to rehab it. So you hope maybe there's some, special sort of voodoo magic they can pull off on his hammy, that they get him back for the playoffs, because there's a chance right now, depending on the seeding, they could drop to the 4 spot, which means they get the Rockets in the first round. That's still a winnable series. If they had Austin Reeves, who's now hurt with an oblique injury, and now nobody knows if he's going to be ready for the playoffs either. He's certainly out for the rest of the regular season. So now you're relying on 41-year-old LeBron James to have to carry this team. And LeBron is LeBron. He's he's a juggernaut. He's a phenom, unlike anything we've ever seen. But asking 41-year-old LeBron James at this stage of the season to carry this team, that's a tall order. The Lakers are in some trouble. And, it's just amazing how fortunes change. 2 weeks ago, we were talking about them being, that third team in the West. That after Oklahoma City and San Antonio, that the next team on the list was the Los Angeles Lakers. And now you're wondering, you're left sort of scratching your head as to whether or not they could be out in the first round of the postseason. We'll see what happens with Luka. We'll see what happens with Austin Reeves. They certainly need at least one of those guys back if they're going to win in the opening round, and having both of them back would certainly be beneficial. Odds and ends, boy, oh boy, what a game for this guy, Cooper Flagg, who is playing some of his best basketball at the end of the season. But I got to be honest, I'm a little perturbed. I'm a little miffed, peeved. That all of a sudden, because of a couple of big games, and don't get me wrong, they're big games. It's the youngest to go for 50 ever, first teenager to ever go for 50. Then he goes for 40 plus, in his last game against the Lakers. I get that it's great that he's doing these things. First of all, the 50-point game, his team got blown out, okay? So as much as we're going to talk about the fact, and that is the story to me about why it's Con Kneppel that's your Rookie of the Year and not Cooper Flagg. Con Kneppel is playing in games that matter every night. He basically averages the same number of points by like a point or point and a half less than Cooper Flagg. He's playing in games that matter every night. He's part of a team where he's not literally the only guy that has to score every night, which is what Cooper Flagg is right now, because everybody's hurt and they have nobody else to carry that offense. And instead, we're talking about Cooper Flagg winning winning Rookie of the Year based on 2 games. Up until a week ago, it was all about Con Kneppel winning Rookie of the Year. Now, because of a couple of games, we're going to give Cooper Flagg the Rookie of the Year award. It's insane. I expect fans to do the prisoner of the moment thing. I don't expect it from the media. And we're getting it right now from guys that are supposed to be reputable media people that vote on these awards. And they're getting it wrong right now. If Cooper Flagg wins Rookie of the Year, there's an injustice that's been done to Con Kneppel. It's media narratives. It's going to do it for us. We're out of time. Thanks to Sam Yarnell. Thanks to Bill Bender. All of you at home for watching. I'm Jason Page. We'll see you back here on Tuesday. Enjoy the national championship game. Go Huskies! We'll see you back here on Tuesday. Bye-bye. Hi there. I'm Jason Page. You like what you're watching? Subscribe. We've got Sports Wrap Shorts on this channel. We've got the show. We've got clips from the show. What else do you have to do? You probably follow a lot of other things that aren't half as exciting. They're not half as exciting as this show is. So what are you waiting for? Click the subscribe button, follow the channel, watch the content. Bye.